All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're glad you're all here, and hopefully, you will get a kick out of this and learn some things and be interested in flying drones. Maybe you got a drone for the first time, or you got one for somebody, or just know someone that got one. But we think this is going to be helpful and hopefully educational. If you got questions, please send them to us. We'll have all our contact info at the end and here at the beginning too. But you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and send us questions that way. We're not using the chat function tonight, so if you send it to chat, we'll tell you to go to the Q&A. So anyway, without further ado, we will get started. Here's the team. You're from Milwaukee FSDO office. We got Troy and Nick from the Minneapolis FSDO office. We got Alan from the Las Vegas FSDO office. Of course, Laura is our guru behind the scenes, and she does all kinds of webinars, and she'll be doing the questions at the end. So thank you to all of you for helping out. I'm Levi Eastlick, Chief Pilot for the Bureau of Aeronautics for Wisconsin. FAA lead safety rep, just like Laura is. Here's our pro tips series. So we do these every month. We do the pro tips for flight instructors and pilots and mechanics every single month, and then pro tips for drone pilots we do at least quarterly. We're hoping to do a little bit more than that. So keep an eye out for all this stuff if you're interested in it. And here's our speakers for tonight. We've got Reza and PJ, and I'll have them introduce themselves. They're both FAA lead safety reps, just like I am. So Reza, you want to start? Tell everyone what you do with drones, how long you've been doing it, where you're from.
All right. Hey, thanks, Levi. So coming to you from Las Vegas, and been doing the small drones, flying and educating and teaching it for about 11 years now. So it's goes back quite a ways, and I've seen a lot of good development, and very excited to see where the drone, ecosystem is today and where it's going from here. And it's very exciting to see all the things that have been going on. So
definitely. Thank you, Reza. PJ, you're next.
Hey, thanks, Levi. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's joining us. It's really neat to see the number of individuals that are interested in learning this stuff. So with that, and I'm also grateful and privileged to be presenting with Reza and Levi tonight. So I'm PJ Kirkpatrick, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and currently the director of Drone U operations. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to presenting this information with you guys tonight. So looking forward to the questions too.
Awesome. Thank you both of you for being here, helping out with this. Couldn't do it without you guys. And if any of you out there are drone pros like these two, I mean, they've been doing it for a while. Reach out. We'd love to have more of you on the team. So what are we here for tonight? Well, help recreational pilots fly safe, fly without getting in trouble. That's the whole idea. So we're going to cover some definitions, explain what some of the terms we're going to say often are. We're going to discuss the certifications that are out there, what you need to have. We're going to go over the rules. There's 9 real basic rules for recreational pilots. Now, there's a couple more than that for what you should do, but the rules themselves from the FAA cover those. That other stuff you should do, the expectations, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some safety stuff, some ideas, some things we've picked up through what we've done and learned, what we've learned from others, sometimes the hard way. Keep you all safe, and then we'll give you the resources, the stuff that we use, that we'd recommend everybody use, most, if not all of it, which is free. So we're going to give you all that stuff. Definitions. Recreational pilot. What is a recreational pilot? Well, first off, recreational pilot is defined by the operation that you're actually doing, right? It is a certificate, it is a title, but it depends on what you're doing. But simply, it's somebody who's flying a drone purely for fun. If you're not flying for fun, if you're doing anything else, now you're a commercial drone pilot who has to follow the FAA regulations under Part 107. So 107 rules cover anything that isn't for fun, anything. And so if you're flying under anything else, you got to follow 107, and you have to have a 107 FAA certificate, a pilot certificate. So it doesn't mean if I'm flying for fun, I don't need a certificate. That's not true. You do. You need a recreational pilot certificate if you're flying for fun. So those are the main differences. Am I flying for fun? Am I not flying for fun? Now, if maybe you're a teacher or a college and you're doing some research, or you're doing some STEM stuff or whatever, there are exceptions, but we're not getting into that. So just know I have a drone, I'm flying for fun, or I'm not flying for fun. Those are the two definitions to keep in mind: recreational, commercial. Visual line of sight, VLOS. We're going to talk about that a lot. That's the key thing to remember with VLOS is it's a physical line of sight from your eyeballs to that drone. You can't have glasses or contacts, but you can't have binoculars. You can't have somebody else seeing it for you. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to see that drone or that RC airplane the whole time. Now, it doesn't mean you have to stare at it the whole time, right? You got a controller, you got buttons to stuff to mess with, but you got to be able to see it. It can't be behind a tree. You can't be sitting in your house looking out the window seeing it's, it's line of sight. That's not the correct way to do it. If you're flying with FPV goggles, and that's a lot of fun, you aren't able to physically see it with your eyes, right? You're looking at a screen. So you have to have somebody next to you that can, which we call the visual observer. So that visual observer has to have maintained line of sight, and they got to be right next to you. Again, you can't have a visual observer, half mile up the road yelling at you, yep, it's still here. That doesn't work that way. So we'll talk a little bit more about line of sight, but that's what line of sight means. And visual observer, that's what those definitions are. The certifications, so actual certificate. I talked a little bit about the 107. For recreational pilots, you have to take the TRUST, which is the Recreational UAS Safety Test, and it's free, it's online. And once you get it, you get an actual little certificate. It's not plastic. It's it's a piece of paper. It's online, so you can download the paper and print it off, or just save the digital copy. Either way is fine. But that's what you have to have before you go flying recreationally. If you're going to fly 107, you have to have a Part 107 certificate, which a lot more to that process than going online and taking a free test. There's more involved with that. We're not going to cover that tonight, but if that's something you're interested in, check one of our webinars later or reach out to any of us. So again, recreational pilot, got to take the TRUST and have their TRUST certificate. Got to have it with you when you're flying. You cannot go flying without it physically on you, digitally or the paper copy, doesn't matter. You've got to have it with you. So here we're going to fly through the 9 rules, and in the following slides, we're going to elaborate on them a little bit more. Number 1 is only fly for one. So when you get your TRUST certificate, and we'll talk about registration here in a little bit. When you get your registration certificate, all 9 of these rules are on the back of both of those certificates. So when I say you only got 9 simple rules, it's all you've got to follow from the FAA. Number 1, fly for fun, nothing else. Follow the guidelines of a CBO, which is a community-based organization. Right now, there's only 3 of them, and they're again on the FAA's website. Everything we're telling you tonight is available on the FAA's website. Now, all this info is all stuff they've put out, certified by them. So if you're not on a site that's FAA.gov, or you didn't get there from an FAA.gov, may not be the right stuff. But a community-based organization is AMA is the Academy of Model Aeronautics. So they're people that like to get together and just fly for fun. And all of them have to have safety guidelines of, if I'm a member of this group, this is what I'm going to do. Now, you don't have to be a member of these groups to get their safety guidelines. And we'll talk about that in the following slides. But that's what a CBO is. It's a community-based organization, and you have to follow safety guidelines of one of them. You can do more, you can't do less. So keep that in mind. Always maintain VLOS, visual line of sight. Don't fly by other aircraft. I'm going to get into this a little bit more. Should be self-explanatory. It's not always. Don't do it. 5 and 6 are similar. They're both airspace related rules. 5 is you got to stay below 400 feet AGL, which is above ground level. It means that aircraft cannot be more than 400 feet above the ground ever. And that applies in uncontrolled airspace, or what we call Class G, Class Golf airspace. If you want to fly in controlled airspace, which is all the others besides Class G, you must get authorization from FAA through the Lance, which if you saw the pre-slideshow video, we went through that process a little bit. You got to get that authorization before you take off. It can't be while, can't be after. Do not even think about flying in the controlled airspace unless you have authorization. In some places, you just can't get authorization. Take trust, we talked about that, and have it with you. It's a rule, I'm not making it up. Gotta have your drone registered. We will talk about this quite a bit here in a little bit, but it's $5. It's good for 3 years. There's no reason not to do it. And fly safe, right? Fly safe. Don't do anything that isn't safe. Pretty vague statement, but it's a rule. So if you're doing something that isn't safe, you're against the rules, could get in a lot of trouble. Rule number 1, fly only for fun. We talked about this. If you're going out and if you don't have a camera on your aircraft, it's a good chance you're only flying it for fun because all you can do is fly, right? You can't take photos, you can't take videos. I mean, you could get creative and find ways to make money without a camera, I suppose, but it's not just about making money to make it not fun. The whole idea is what's the intent of the flight? And if it's literally, I just want to fly around, and maybe you have a camera and you want to look at some cool stuff, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you take some pictures or video and a friend of yours says, hey, send me that picture I want to put on my website. Maybe you only flew for fun, but maybe now it's not just for fun. If that aircraft or those photos or videos or anything are being used for something else, it's kind of a gray area that you don't want to push, especially if you're the one flying it and posting it. And maybe you're using the videos for your YouTube channel that has nothing to do with drones. Well, you can, that's not just for fun. You're furthering something you're doing with the use of drones. That's commercial. So fly only for fun. That's really important. Yeah, could get into some more stuff in the 107 realm, but again, if you're doing anything else, if there's a chance you're doing anything else, get your 107 certificate and fly under that. CBO guidelines. So here are the 3 that I mentioned. These are the 3 that are out there on the FAA's website. Again, the FAA website will list all of them. I'm very confident we'll get some more here in the future because as of 2 months ago, there's only 1, and now there's 3 already. So this list is growing. There's the links. Go ahead and take a screenshot or whatever you need. If you need these links, if you need them later, send us an email. We'll send you this. But these are just the links to their safety guidelines. So they've all got them. You don't have to be a member, like I said, but a lot of these groups do a lot of really cool things and have a lot more to give than just the safety guidelines. Some even offer insurance. So if you're looking for guidance and help in the recreational world, I definitely go to one or all of these. Doesn't ever hurt to ask is what I say. Visual line of sight, keep it in sight. And this gets people in trouble by accident quite a bit. We all see the videos online of people flying miles and miles away for their drone. Obviously, that's illegal unless you've got a certain 107 waivers even. 107 still has to keep it in line of sight 90% of the time. But what happens is you'll be flying and maybe you get behind a tree. You don't mean to. You're just looking at something and then you get behind a tree and you look up and where's my drone? And if you can't see it, it's not line of sight. And it may be behind a tree or around a building or somebody walked in between you and the drone. That's an issue. You gotta keep it within sight. Definitely don't fly it far enough. I've sat at my house and watched people fly drones in the clouds. It's like, well, that's not in your sight anymore because it's not in my sight. So yeah, don't fly it beyond what you can physically see with your eyes. One thing that helps is get really bright flashing strobe lights if you can. Put them on the bottom side of your drone or on the back side if you're flying it away from you. That helps find it because we all lose it. We all are flying, doing our thing, look up, oh, the sun's in my eyes, I can't see it. And you stop, you don't fly, and you reacquire, okay, I can see it, I'm in line of sight still. It happens, we get it, but we don't want to be intentionally flying it beyond what we can physically see. Hopefully that makes sense. Don't fly near other aircraft. This is one that is really important. Can't explain enough how big of a deal this is for a couple of reasons, right? So you've got a drone, you've got an RC airplane, you've got a remote controlled helicopter. Those are all by legal definition an aircraft. You have the same rights as a 747. You really do. The difference is one has people in it, one doesn't. What are we going to protect, right? The people. If we get a lot of drones putting people in danger, pretty easy to say no more drones. And of course, we're not going to do that. We see how the industry's growing and we want drones, but we don't want a couple bad eggs ruin it for all of us, right? So don't fly near airplanes. I can tell you, flying in a plane and in a helicopter, you can't see drones until they're right there in your windshield. I mean, you can't see them. It's just like birds. It's really hard to see something when you're going that fast and it's that small. So don't assume a plane or anybody can hear you. One of the things we do in my office is we survey airports. So we're actually taking drones to airports, and we got a lot of stuff. We're all commercial pilots. We got a lot of hoops to kind of jump through to do it. But our number one rule: if you see an airplane, drones coming down right now. Like we don't. It's not something to play with. So anyway, if you see or hear an aircraft nearby, best thing to do is land it. And obviously you want to land in a safe place. It's not an emergency. You don't have to put it down right now, but land it as quick as you can. If you can't land it, if you've got trees or buildings nearby you, at least get it down below the trees and buildings, because the aircraft can see the trees and buildings, whatever it is. One thing to be careful of, hospital heliports. And just heliports in general, they're all over the place, and helicopters can come in pretty quick, especially hospital ones. So you probably don't have a lot of time to respond until that helicopter is right there. And if that helicopter flies over you and you're airborne, that rotor wash is just going to take your aircraft away. I mean, there's no joke with the rotor wash. So if you need to learn best you can, if you live near a heliport. If you lived there a while, you probably know because you've heard the helicopters. But something to keep in mind. And also in the middle of farm fields, crop dusters. They move really fast, really low. They'll have no idea you're flying there. Be aware of crop dusters. We have them even above the woods here. So if you see an airliner way up in the sky, 25, 30, 40,000 feet, you don't need to worry about it. It's not nearby. It's not a big deal. So don't want you to take this and get scared. Airliners up at cruise altitude, you don't need to worry about. It's the stuff down low by the ground, coming in to land or taking off usually. So hopefully that helps that. Here's a video of what happens when a drone is flying too close to airports and airplanes. Oh, the video stopped on me. There we go. So you can see all the airplane tracks. These are airplanes that are told to either go somewhere else or wait. So all the red ones are airplanes that are told to wait for the airport to open. And each one of those tracks is a separate airplane. This is from one drone being sighted by the airport. So now the runway is open, they're starting to land some of these. And the drone comes back. So clearly from that you can see it's not a joke, and airports don't take it lightly. The big thing for airports is it could be a security threat. So they see a drone, they're immediately going to get all the planes out of the way. They're going to take security measures. But not just around airports. It's just not good to fly around other airplanes and helicopters. So hopefully that video you realized the importance of this. And yeah, once you're caught, you're going to have to pay for all those diversions and all those fuels and all those tickets being reissued to everybody. So yeah, it's not a joke to play around with other aircraft. 5 and 6 now. 5 and 6 are two rules in one. We talked about them on the earlier slide. Remember, rule number 5 is you gotta stay below 400 feet. That's part 1 of that, and in Class G airspace, uncontrolled airspace. If you have no idea what I mean by uncontrolled airspace or controlled airspace or Class G or Class C or Class D, need to do some homework. The trust test helps a little bit with that. A little bit more research probably need to do. What we see on the background of this is a FAA sectional chart. This is what tells manned pilots what the airspace is. And the expectation is for unmanned UAS pilots to know what the airspace is, where you're at, what airspace you're in. And a test that I always do to folks is right now, where I'm at, if I jump straight up in the air, what airspace am I in? Because that's how it works. FAA controls all the air. There's no magic below 50 feet. I'm not in FAA. It doesn't work that way. Once you jump up in the air, you're in the airspace. If you're in a building with a roof, walls, doors, windows, you're not in the airspace. Once you're outside, you're in the airspace. So if you can't answer when I jump up, what airspace am I in? We need to do some homework and do some, maybe talk to somebody to help teach us that. Like I said before we fly in controlled airspace, authorization. There's several different apps that you can get it from. You can go straight to the FAA's website and get it there. This isn't a webinar to teach you how to get authorization. We do some authorization webinars. We have in the past. And if you need help, by all means, reach out. But you just need to understand right now, before you fly, you need to know exactly what airspace you're flying in every time. If you need authorization, if you don't. And the sectional chart is the FAA's map. This is what you get. This is how you know. Not very useful for drone pilots. My street versus my neighbor's address versus across the street all could be in different airspace. And obviously this chart does not get down that granular of a level. So the Before You Fly app is an FAA produced app, but it's distributed by, I think it's still Kitty Hawk, I believe. But it's a great app and it works really well. And it's if you start anywhere, start with that. That helps you identify the apps. There's other apps out there. There's other websites out there where you can type in physical addresses and it'll pull up a sectional chart. So yeah, don't ever be unsure of what airspace you're flying in. And if you are unsure, call a flight instructor. They can help you out. Call drone pros, like the 3 of us, or any of your local drone pros. Call the FAA and say, I need help. I don't know what to do. And they'll find somebody that can help you if they can't themselves. So always know what airspace you're in, and then you can know what rules apply. On to the registration. So you have to register your drone. So there's 2 things now that you have to do, right? You have to take the trust test to fly recreationally, and you have to register your drone. Bare minimum, that's what you've got to do. It's pretty easy. FAA Drone Zone, that's the place to go. That's where you register. There's no other way to do it. It's really simple. Like I said before, it's $5, good for 3 years. What's cool about recreational, if you've got 1 or 5 or 20 drones that you fly for fun, maybe you have that many RC airplanes that you've built, you only need to get 1 registration because it's good for all of them. So yeah, pretty slick. Not asking a whole lot out of folks. Here's what the certificate looks like. Again, it's online, it's all digital, so you can print it off or you can keep it digitally. But regardless, when you fly, just like the trust certificate, you've got to have it with you, one form or another. You got to have both. And I said this covers all of your recreational drones. You've got to label them with your certificate number. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. But Now, when I say drones or UAS or remote controlled airplanes, they're all interchangeable. I'm kind of throwing them all out to mix it up. But as far as the FAA is concerned, all of them are aircraft. All of them fall under the same category of airplanes. They're unmanned aircraft systems. You have something that flies and a controller that controls it. So anything in that realm is the same, falls under the same rules. We start talking about military stuff and really, really big stuff. There's some exceptions and some different rules, but we're not talking about that. So yeah, when I say drone or RC airplane or UAS, it's all the same. Don't think they're anything different. We're all the same category here. So now I'm going to hand it over to PJ and Reza. PJ's first. So I'll stop sharing my screen and let PJ share his, and they're going to dive into the registration a little more. So there's no reason we don't know exactly how to register any of our aircraft.
Hey, thank you, Levi.
Sure.
All right. Without further ado, let me get this teed up. All right. So
Looks good.
Reza and I are going to be focusing on specifically how to register your drone. The good news is that the FAA has made it relatively simple to do. So it's 5 steps. We're going to walk you through one, how to register, who needs to register, stuff like that. So these are the topics that we're going to cover. Registration requirements. Levi did an excellent job highlighting the different types of pilot categories. You're either Part 107 or you're recreational. How do you know what you are? We're going to show you a tool that the FAA has actually developed to help you with that. How and where to register. I'm going to hand it off to Reza, and he's going to walk you through the steps to register. I'll talk about how and where to get signed up on the site and things like that. Registration fees, as Levi mentioned, it's $5, and we'll talk about what that covers a little bit later on. Reza is also going to be highlighting how and where to label your drone. And last but not least, renewing your drone registration, how often you have to renew it. Things to keep an eye out as the years progress, because time flies when you're having fun. And I always have fun flying drones. So, so registration requirements. So if you're 13 years of age or older, you must register your drone. You must be a citizen of the United States or a legal permanent resident. For foreign operators, FAA will consider the certificate issued to be recognized of ownership rather than a certificate of UAS aircraft. So if you have friends coming from overseas, you can help them out on what they need to do. Recreation flyer or certified remote pilot, or the Part 107. I use those terms interchangeably myself. So how do you know what kind of pilot you are? So like I said, the FAA developed a really simple tool to help you guys figure out, where do you fall? I'll walk you through that. So this is on the website. What it does is just going to ask a series of questions. It takes about maybe 30 seconds to do. And I'm just going to walk through it real quickly. Are you a US government agency? No. Are you a citizen of the United States? Or, yeah, I am. Flying for business? Nope. Are you flying for recreation? Yeah. I'm just going to have fun. Does your drone weigh more than 55 pounds? No. Well, you're flying under the recreational flyers and community-based organizations. So that's a helpful tool if you're confused. But as Levi mentioned earlier, if you're flying for fun, it's you can fall under recreation. All right, so what's a recreational flight? Now, Levi touched on this, but often people get a little confused, especially if you're a Part 107 pilot. When you fly, can I fly recreational as a Part 107? Yes, absolutely. What's the difference? Well, the difference is really if you're flying for fun. Any confusions, fall back to the Part 107, because this is where the confusion comes in, right? Let's say you're flying a mission for a buddy. You have a buddy that has a business, right? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to get shots of my business. Well, you can help him out but you're really kind of furthering your own business. So that's going to be a fall into part 107. Even though your money's not exchanging hands, you're furthering your business. Another example that gets brought up is like, for example, farmers, right? Farmer has a plot of land. If he flies his drone just flying for fun, he's not really like collecting any data. He's just flying for fun. However, once he starts to take, like, let's say he does a mapping mission with his drone, well, he's furthering his business by using that drone. Even though there's no monetary value being exchanged, it's the further of the business. And here's another example, volunteering your drone to fly for a nonprofit organization. That's going to fall under part 107. So here we go, how to register your drone. So I'm just going to walk you through these steps. There's a couple different ways to register. We're really going to be targeting the web-based system. So there's a couple different ways to register. The paper-based registration system is really more for the part 107 pilots. We'll touch on that a little bit, but we're really going to just dive into the web-based system because most people that are flying recreational are going to be using the web-based system. So how do you get there? There's a couple ways. The link at the bottom is the direct access to the FAA drone zone. There's a couple of different other ways to get there, which I'll demonstrate here. So this way is, we're just going to go to the FAA.gov website. All right, FAA.gov. Now on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a special section called drones. So we're going to just click on that. And we're going to scroll down, and on the left-hand side of your screen, getting started, there's a link, register your drone. That's going to take us where we need to go. So if this is your first time coming here, the first thing you're going to want to do is create an account, read the legal language and accept it. You're just going to populate your information, password. And the one thing I wanted to point out too is because I went through this process just recently because I want to make sure there was no changes. The website didn't change a little bit. So if you've done this in the past, it'll look a little bit different. But it's really important to note this because the FAA will send you an email confirming your account and validating it. It didn't show up in my email. Where it did show up was my spam folder. So if you don't see it coming, just check your spam folder. More than likely it's going to fall there. So now that you have an account, let's log in. I'm just going to log into the account. More legal language to agree to. So once you log in, you're going to want to add a service out. This is a little bit different than the past if you're seeing this for if this is new to you. So you're going to want to create select the drone owners and pilot service areas selected. The other two options are there too, just for your interest, but today we're just going to be specifically talking about registration. So go ahead and click on that launch drone owners and pilots, and that's going to take you to this next screen. So this is where you want to go, either part 107, or let's set up our recreational flyer account. Let's do that right now. All right, so all you have to do is spend a few seconds to populate your profile. Very simple. And again, this is just a reminder that the registration fee is only $5. You'll receive a registration number, and Levi showed you that. We have another example here. It's valid for 3 years, but you must renew your registration. Reza will talk about that a little bit later. And Reza will also go into a little bit more detail about where to mark your drone with your registration number. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Reza, and he's going to walk you through actually going through those 5 easy steps. So
all right, thank you, PJ, and welcome everybody. So yep, we're talking about drone registrations, and if your drone weighs more than 250 grams, you've got to register. So, but the good news is, as a recreational flyer, you get one registration number. It only costs $5. It's good for 3 years. You stick the same registration number on all of your drones. So we're going to go through the steps now. So you got to have your registration, you have to have your drone marked, and you have to have that registration information with you. Like PJ said, and Levi touched on this, It's all electronically done on the web, but you got to print it out or have a digital version of it on you. With your recreational registration of your drone, you can only fly that drone for recreational purposes, just for fun. You got to follow the safety guidelines of your CBO, community-based organization. So they may have a few other things that they have in their guidelines in addition to what the FAA requires you to do. When you fly, you got to keep your drone within visual line of sight. PJ and Levi have touched on this, and it's very, very important. Now, the question does sometimes come up, what if I fly FPV? Well, then you're going to have someone, we call them a visual observer, right next to you, literally, standing next to you, and they're your eyes and ears, so to speak. But you're only seeing what the drone is seeing. So as an FPV flyer, you need that VO next to you. You got to give right away, and also don't interfere with any manned aircraft flights. So this was touched on earlier, and it can't be emphasized enough. You've got to be aware and be aware of your surroundings and have good situational awareness. And if there is an aircraft approaching your area, you need to get out of the way. And as soon as it's safe and you can land it somewhere, you got to take that action. It's not an emergency, like Levi said, but it could turn into a bad situation. You just need to be the person that does that scanning of the sky and getting out of the way, because a small drone is very difficult for an aircraft to see. But of course, you can see the big aircraft, and you just got to be aware. So you give it away and don't interfere. You have to get out of the manned aircraft. So you're always giving right away to manned aircraft. Fly at or below 400 feet above the ground level. And if you're in controlled airspace, you may need airspace authorization. In uncontrolled airspace, class Golf, you don't need authorization, and you still have to stay under that 400 feet above the ground level. You have to comply with all the airspace restrictions. So if there is a temporary flight restriction, TFR, you've got to be aware of it. And you cannot fly during a TFR. There's not any kind of a way that you can get an approval to fly during a TFR. So you got to be aware of that. And there's a FAA website for TFRs, and you can check that. Now, if you checked yesterday and everything were clear, that doesn't mean today it's clear. So you've got to be checking it. The Before You Fly app, which we're going to touch on, is free. It's by the FAA, and it's a very, very useful tool. Wherever you're standing, you can bring up the app and you can see if there are any advisories or any issues from the FAA point of view. You obviously have to check the weather and community rules and any other laws that might be in your jurisdiction, in your city or county. You've got to pass the FAA trust test, and maybe this should be the first thing you should do. If you own a drone, you must, by law, have passed the trust test and have it on you if you're a recreational flyer. The other option is you're a Part 107 certified pilot. So you got to have that trust test with you. If you lose it or it gets damaged, you got to go online, take it again, print it again, and have it on you. Maybe get it laminated so that it's going to maintain its condition. Next slide, please. All right, so there's 5 steps. So you're going to go through these and add your device. So on the FAA website, there's only one place you can register your drone. It's the FAA drone zone. And on the FAA website, they refer them, because it could be a drone, an RC, different things, as a device. So don't be like, oh, where do I register my drone? It is actually called a device. So if you have 20 aircraft, they're going to be 20 devices. So next slide, please. And this is where you're going to enter everything. If your aircraft has remote ID, that's the first thing you have to click on, that radio button, yes or no. And then you put your device type, your drone or aircraft type, what the manufacturer's name is. If you have home built it, that's okay. You can write that. Serial number, if one exists. Again, if you home built it, there's no serial number. Give it a nickname if you want to, and then whatever the model number is. So if, let's say you have a DJI Mavic Air 2S. So the manufacturer is DJI, the serial number you have to get off the drone, the nickname, maybe you call it, A2S_1 because you have 2 of them. And then the model is aircraft, Mavic Air 2S. So, and then you click on add device. Next slide. And this is where you enter your information, your credit card information, and everything's done online. So, you just go and basically it adds it to your cart, and it's $5, super cheap. And it's good for 3 years. And the FAA is going to send you an email well in advance of when one of your registration number is going to expire, and be like, hey, it's time to renew. Now, if you do change your email address or your contact information, your physical address, then you need to update that on the FAA website within 30 days. So after you've entered your credit card information and your billing information for that credit card, then you click next. And you can preview your order. There we are. There's my payment information. There's the billing information. And you check when you click on pay, basically you're paying that $5. And you can see there, it says 3-year expiration, unlimited SUAS. Like PJ said, I think, or Levi, you could have 20 aircraft, same registration number, but you got to stick them. Those registration numbers have to be printed and then put on to the aircraft in a way that they don't fly off during flights. They have to be very well, maybe figure out how to do it. Next. All right, so we've mentioned this several times now. For a Part 107 certified pilot, for a commercial drone pilot, every drone has to be registered. Each drone will have a separate and different registration number. And then those registration numbers are put onto your drone. If you're a recreational flyer, you just get one registration number, $5, good for 3 years. And once you register a drone, let's say you are a recreational flyer and you've got 5 drones and you put the same registration number on there. And 6 months later, you get your Part 107 certificate. And you want to fly those 5 drones, or maybe 2 of them, or 3 of them. Well, you can. Under Part 107, those drones now have to be registered individually under Part 107. And that's why you saw those 2 buttons on the FAA website. If you don't have an FAA drones on website, account, you should create one. It's free, and you have to do it. You have to register your drone. If it weighs over 250 grams as a recreational flyer, you got to register. As a Part 107 pilot, you have to register every drone, even if it weighs 1 gram. If it's on, it's an SUAS, meaning less than 55 pounds. As a Part 107 pilot, every drone has to be registered. As a recreational, there's if it's less than 250 grams, then you don't have to. But anyway, just be sure that you've registered your drone and that you've put that registration number on your drone, which we're going to talk about next. So here we are. So you got your confirmation, and you can see it says your registration number is, and it's been fuzzied out because that's actually PJ's. Now you take that, maybe paste it into your Word document and copy it 10 times because you got 10 drones, print it out, and then, stick it on, tape it on, whatever you got to do. Make sure it sticks on. Some drones have a kind of not a perfectly smooth surface. So like on a Phantom 4, it's easy. It's got a smooth surface. But you go on one of the Mavics, it's kind of a bumpy surface. So you got to just make sure it's fixed on there really well so it doesn't fly off during flight. Next slide. So on the previous slide, there was a small area that was kind of hard to read. So that's, we expanded it for you. All drones must be marked on the outside. They have to be marked on the outside in a way that's easy to see. An FAA representative walks up, or law enforcement, they say, let me see your drone. They got to be able to see that registration number. And they're going to be entitled to see your certificate, your trust certificate, and the registration information on that drone. So not just the sticker on your drone, but also the registration sticker or paper that you either print or have digital on you. Next slide, please. So this is what you're doing this online, but this is what you'll get online, and you can, screenshot it, copy, paste it, do whatever you need to do to print it. My suggestion is print this and have it laminated and put it in your drone case. But if you're a recreational flyer, you have 10 cases. It's the same number. You just print it, however many times you need, laminate, stick it right into the case. It's always with you that way. And I laminate mine, and every drone case has one of those in. So next one. All right, so your drone's registered. Now what? Once you register your drone, you'll receive your FAA registration that you saw. You must have the registration certificate on you, whether it's paper or digital. And whenever you fly, it's got to be on you. And if you lose it, just go online and print it again. And if another person operates your drone, so you lend it to a friend, they must have the registration certificate with them. And that's why I'm saying, just put it in your drone bag or your drone case, and that way it's always there. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Yeah, and unless if your drone weighs less than 250 grams, you're going to have to register it. And any law enforcement officer can ask you to see it. So next slide. So a lot of people are like, oh, is there another place to register your drone? Nope. FAA Drone Zone. That's it. That's where you register. So get your account tonight if you don't have one. Because if you have a drone and you don't have an account on FAA Drone Zone, then you're flying illegally. Registering a drone is only $5. Not registering a drone has severe consequences, and the fines can be into the thousands of dollars. You don't want to deal with that. Register your drone. Next slide. Don't fall for any scams. So the official FAA websites will be FAA.gov, FAA.gov/UAS. There'll be a .gov of some sort. And if you get a paid advertisement on a website that's telling you they can register your drone, that's not legitimate. There are no ads on the FAA website. There's no, special step that needs to be taken. You don't need someone's help who's going to charge you an extra $50 a year to register your drone. You don't need that. So don't fall for those scams. There's scams online, as you know. And here's some examples for you. This one actually is an ad, and it says FAAregisterdrone.com. Sounds legitimate, but it's not. And all those FAA things, don't pay attention to any of that. The links are in these slides. And if you want to remember just one easy URL to remember, FAA.gov/UAS. Everything you need is there. Or you can just go to FAA.gov and go onto the right side of the screen and see the drone. But do not fall for these things. Don't click on those things. Don't do in the Google search drone registration and click on that first thing. That might be a scam. Next. Before your drone registration expires, you need to renew it. Again, you're going to get an email, but what if your email changed or whatever, it went into spam? It's to you, it's your responsibility to make sure your registration is accurate and current. So go to the FAA Drone Zone website, maybe put a note on your calendar that 2.5 years from now, you're going to go and pay for another renewal. So pretty easy to do, but you don't want to forget about it. If you're having trouble, you can reset your password. Again, you're like, well, I don't need to go on there very often. That's true. If you're a recreational flyer, that one registration number is good for 3 years. And if you forget your password, you just reset it. Again, we're emphasizing, make sure if you change your email address, you update your FAA account with that information so that you can have communication coming your way still. Next slide, please. Thank you. So hopefully this has been helpful. Back to you, Levi.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, President PJ. It was very good, very helpful. We got 11 minutes left till 8 o'clock hour, then we'll answer questions. I've got 7 slides left. So we're almost to the end. I'm hoping y'all are getting a lot out of this. I know it's great information. PJ Reza did a great job helping putting all this together. So definitely thank them for this, and we'll continue on from this slide. Should all be seeing it now? Yep. Okay. So we covered the registration really well. The trust test we've covered really well. Here's a copy of what it looks like. Again, those 9 rules are on the trust test on the back of your card. Just like the registration, you've got to have it with you when you're flying. Just like the registration, don't get scammed, right? Trust is online. It's free. FAA.gov/UAS/all this other stuff. You can find the list of all of the providers, right? So that you can't take the test on FAA.gov, but on this website, you can see all the places that they have authorized people to give the test for them. A lot of local tech schools and colleges and folks like DroneU, they all are authorized. So again, it's free, it's online, don't pay for it. Gotta have their certificate with you. If you lose this certificate though, you can't just jump back onto that website and print it off because there's no login, no sign in. You actually have to sign up, retake the test, you'll get a new certificate number. So a little bit different here with if you lose your certificate, with Drone Zone, you can just sign in, reprint off your aircraft registration. Trust test, you just got to retake the test. And again, got to show it to law enforcement and the FAA if they ask you. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward with that. 9th rule, summed up really clearly, fly safe. There's a couple more things in there, but generally what it's saying, fly safe. Don't do anything dumb that's going to cause hazard to people. Just fly safe. If you're doing something that could be dangerous, probably not following this rule, right? We got some tips on the next couple slides on how to fly safe, some things to keep you safe, flying or not flying, because these are equipment, they're aircraft. They can crash and they can cause damage. So here are some tips for you to fly safe. Number 1, checklist. So why a checklist? What is a checklist? We've told you now 2 things for sure, actually 3 things for sure you must have, do, or look at before you ever go fly. You gotta have your trust test done and on you. You gotta have the aircraft registered on you and marked on the aircraft. And you've got to follow the safety guidelines of a CBO. Now, we're not quoting any of those safety guidelines. Some of them they're not hard by any means, but you got to know them. You've got to follow those guidelines. So if you have one checklist that has all of that stuff on it, I'm going to go grab my drone, grab the checklist. Do I have all this stuff? You're ready to go. Otherwise, you got to remember it all. And I don't know about you, but I don't remember things all the time. So you can use a checklist. It'll keep you safe. And there's some more things that need to go on that checklist. Weather is important. Can your drone fly in rain? Can it fly in snow? What is the max winds that it's controllable? What are the winds outside on the ground? What are they at 50 feet? What are they at 400 feet? You got to know the weather. Is there a storm coming in? Very important, because if you go up and wind takes your drone away and it hits somebody's Lamborghini, your excuse can be, well, I didn't know it was windy. You're the pilot. It's your job to know. So know the weather. There's a lot of good apps out there, especially for drone folks. Free ones. I mean, I'm a pilot, so I'm going to be cheap, right? That's the joke. But there's no need to pay for things. By all means, pay for things if you really like them and it does the service you need. But for drones, everything you need is free. So there's good apps that will tell you weather coming in. Again, free ones. There's websites. We'll give you some links to some websites here in a bit. But you got to know the weather. You got to know what weather matters to your drone, your pilot. We'll talk about that here in a couple bullet points. The next thing, look for interference. If you're flying near cell towers or radio towers or Wi-Fi, because there's Wi-Fi everywhere, your drone pretty much uses a Wi-Fi signal to talk to the controller. So it's really easy for the most part for those signals to get jumbled and jammed. We 3 of us have seen it happen many times. So you may not know the interference. It may be very obvious. Yeah, I probably will get some interference here. Look out for it, try to avoid it. But more importantly, know what to do if all of a sudden you can't control your drone. And that will go in our next bullet point. If now all of a sudden there's no link between the controller and the drone, you need to know beforehand, what's the drone gonna do? What steps do I need to go do to try to rejoin those controllers? We call that a lost link situation. So you wanna look out for interference so we don't get lost link, but you also need to know ahead of time what to do if you do have lost link. So the next bullet point is to know your system. Know how the drone and the controller, how they all work, what all the buttons do, what all the beeps mean, what all the little blinky symbols are, what the lights are. Know it in and out. If you've got an airplane and you got flaps and you got servos on the ailerons, and you got retractable gear, know the system. Know how all of it works so that when something breaks or doesn't do what you think it should, it's not I don't know what to do. It's okay. We can do this and we need to do this. We need to do this. If it comes with a manual, read the manual, understand the manual, know the manual. If it doesn't, you got to kind of be a test pilot, but do that really safely and controlled in good weather conditions. So know your systems. That's super important. Common sense, everyone says, well, yeah, you just use common sense. Well, it's not always used, right? If you're doing something that's like hey, watch what this can do, or I'm gonna go try this, might want to just take a quick pause. Wait a minute, is this just a good idea? Does this make sense at all? So don't do things that are, in hindsight, would be really dumb. Just take a break and ask yourself, wait a minute. And then TFRs, Reza mentioned TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. It's not exactly a safety thing for you, but I can tell you if you violated TFR, you will become well acquainted with possibly the Secret Service, possibly local law enforcement. It's not something that's ever taken lightly by any pilot, not just drone UAS pilots. TFRs are not a joke. It's a flight restriction. No flights allowed. You gotta know, just like we talked about airspace. What airspace am I in? Great, we know that answer. We did our research. I need to know this second, is there a TFR in my airspace I'm about to jump into? And if you can't confidently say, no, there's not, you have no business to be flying, because TFRs move all the time. There's actually the TFR that follows the president moves constantly. So you got to check. Use some of the apps, use the links we're sending you, or providing to you. Stadiums, all the big major football and baseball and NASCAR, all those major stadiums, when there's an event going on, they have TFRs. And I'm telling you, if you're flying in it, they know you're flying in it, and they're coming to find you. And all of them. If there's a emergency TFR for like firefighting, well, how do we fight fires usually? With airplanes and helicopters. There's a reason we don't want other aircraft flying in there, right? So anyway, enough about TFRs. Just don't take it lightly. Gotta know that there's no TFRs. Remember that checklist we talked about? This got to be on your checklist. All these things, put them on your checklist so you make sure you're flying safe and legally. Other safety thoughts. This is a photo of a drone battery. Obviously, they stabbed a nail through it, but drone batteries will do this occasionally. It's very rare when it happens. Really, they have to be damaged or it's the end of their life. But there's lots of videos, tons of videos online of drone batteries just sitting there and just kind of poof and do this. So if the manufacturer has battery recommendations, or if they say you need to charge it to this much and don't let it get below this much, do it. Like, it's not something to say, oh, it's okay. Follow what the manufacturer says. If the manufacturer doesn't say something, do some research. Look up especially if it's a lithium-ion battery, look up the research and see what you should do. Maybe, just keep batteries when you're not using them in the drone. Unplug them, take them out of the drone, and throw them in a battery fire bag. Just some thoughts, but I want y'all to just be aware, batteries can be not nice. Propeller and rotor awareness. Like, these are motors, and the propellers they're an airfoil, just like on an airplane propeller or a helicopter rotor. They're small and usually plastic, but they go really fast. So assume anytime you have a battery connected to your aircraft, that propeller can start spinning, and it will cut you. PJ's had experiences, I've had experiences. It will cut you. So don't just assume. Now, some of these times we've got to plug the aircraft into a computer inside. If you can, take the propellers off, because when you plug it in, it's going to be on. You don't want it flying around your house and just automatically just accidentally start flying. So if you can take the rotors off, anytime you don't intend to fly, take the rotors or propellers off. If you can't take them off, keep that battery disconnected or out of it until you're ready to fly. So we've all seen people catch their drones by their hand or their helicopters by their hand. I've done it, and we've all done it. And sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's the best and only way we can get our drone safely on the ground. But we shouldn't be doing that unless we're if you can help it, you shouldn't be doing it. And now I won't launch a drone if I can't land it on the ground where I launched it. But again, there's times stuff happens and you got to move, get that drone on the ground right away, whatever. Maybe the landing gear fall off. I don't know. But you don't want to get in the practice of hand catching. Definitely don't want to hand catch it if you can help it. It's a really easy way to lose some fingertips. So yeah, that's all I need to say about that stuff. Another maintenance. Again, some of the manuals will tell you maintenance, how often you need to check this or check that. Really, it comes down to the basic stuff. Are all the screws tight? Is the propellers, are they cracked? Are they nicked? Are they dirty? Did you maybe catch some grass with them or some bugs? Because you will catch bugs with your propellers in the summer. A dirty propeller doesn't fly good. A cracked or nicked propeller is dangerous and needs to be replaced. Now, all that kind of stuff. You have wires hanging out that just get some water damage. Basic maintenance. Make sure it's done, or else you can expect at some point your drone ain't gonna fly like it's supposed to. And firmware and software updates go into that category. We've all seen, and not all drones need firmware or software updates, but ones that do, we've seen, okay, we'll do this update. Now all of a sudden our maximum altitude is completely changed or non-existent. Our return to home location is 3 states away. I mean, just crazy stuff can happen when we do firmware software updates. And that's not a big deal. It's just something to think about. Okay, I did a firmware update. I need to check all of my settings again, make sure they're all how I want them. And then I need to go test fly the drone in a nice low right here area in good weather to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to. And then you're confident you're good till the next update. So that's something to think in mind. And payloads, there's nothing saying you can't put stuff on your drone or carry stuff with your drone. Just know anything you attach to the drone is going to affect the way it flies. It's for sure going to make your batteries go dead sooner because they got to hold more weight. It's going to affect what we call weight and balance, or how it maneuvers, the maneuverability of it. It's going to affect that. It's going to catch more wind, so wind's going to be more of a factor. So think about what you're doing with payloads. Again, is it safe? Does it make sense? Common sense and safe. Those are 2 rules we got to follow. Some payloads come into that. Some other rules, other stuff to think about. Don't fly over moving cars, groups of people, stuff like that. Because I don't know about you, but I've never seen something that's moving on aircraft that's moving, and all of a sudden your engines die and it falls straight down. It's what does physics tell us, right? It's going to go wherever. So don't fly over moving anything or people, and don't hover over top of them either, because that's illegal. We can't put other people in danger. A lot of, we'll see drones all the time. Again, this isn't really recreational, but anytime you see like a drone videotaping a sporting event, or maybe a family get together, it's just up there being a photographer. Now, all those are 107, right? You can't film a football game, local middle school or high school football game, and call it recreational. It's got to be a 107 op. And if they don't have the 107, it's not registered 107, we got other issues. But unless you've got a really roped off secure place, the chances of getting close enough to video the game without flying over top of anybody attending the game is very unlikely. So that's a gray area, right? Can it be done? Yeah, in some instances, I'm sure it can. Most of the time when it's done, is it safe and probably legal? Depends. So don't fly over people, moving cars, that sort of thing. Think of privacy laws, right? So there's no FAA aviation-specific laws on privacy, so we don't need them. There's laws on privacy. If you've got a camera, it doesn't matter what that camera is attached to. Think of privacy. Now, if you don't have a camera, people are going to assume you do. So don't do anything that seems suspicious or that would be even annoying, because that puts a bad rep on kind of all of us. Just be a good neighbor. Some of these drones are loud. I've got a helicopter and it's really loud. It's really fun. I'm not going to fly that really early in the morning. I'm not going to try to fly it in the evening. Be a good neighbor. Don't be crashing your neighbor's stuff either. So yeah, keep that in mind. There are some local laws that prohibit drone flight. It's local. I don't know all the local laws. Don't ask me your local laws. Here in Wisconsin, it's a state law. You can't. Nobody can prohibit drone flight, but it is allowed to prohibit in certain instances where drones can land and take off. So again, going back to that checklist, you need all these things. You need to know your airspace. You need to know if there's TFRs. Now you need to know, does your city, does your county, does your state allow you to fly where you're at? That checklist, you gotta know it, right? And then also most state national wildlife areas, state parks, national parks, national forests, most all those places are no drone zones. Some on the national level for sure, you can't fly there. On a state level might be you can't land or take off there, but maybe you can fly over as long as you don't land or take off, because once you're on the ground there, it's now state property. So prisons, jails, power plants, Department of Defense bases, so military bases, Navy ships, Coast Guard ships, all that sort of stuff. Mississippi River Basin is a wildlife zone. Can you fly there or not? A lot more starts going in this conversation. So we covered the 9 rules, which are really simple, straightforward, got a little maybe digging to do there. But when it comes to all of the rules that are out there for drones, take some research. And the point is, ask, right? Ask someone to help you. I want to fly here. I'm not positive. I'm looking at a sectional. I don't know what this means. Help me. You got people that are willing to help you. And finally, don't call the airports for permission to fly. Now, if for some reason you need and want to go fly at your local airport, then absolutely call the airport and talk to them, because you can't just show up on airport property without permission to do so. You definitely, remember we talked about before, don't fly near the aircraft. So is it illegal to fly on airports? No, if you have permission to be there. We aren't talking about that. We're talking about you're sitting at your house and you got a local airport 2 or 3 miles away. Don't call the airport to ask them if it's okay for you to fly. It's your job to know if it's okay to fly. If you need help with that, there's people like us and the FAA and flight instructors that can help you. The airport's not the one to call. So I used to work at an airport. We used to get those phone calls all the time. Luckily, when I could answer them, I'm a flight instructor, so I was able to help them work through and learn some things. But it's not the airport's job to tell you if you can fly over your house. So anyway, remote ID is something you might have heard of. It's a law came in. We're not going to talk about it here, but remote ID as it stands now comes into effect September 16th. That could be a really big deal for a lot of us. It may not be. We all kind of, and by we all, I mean us 3 that are in the business. I'm not speaking any of this on behalf of the FAA or anything, but we kind of expect some stuff to change by September, but we don't know. Regardless, we will cover this in a webinar coming up soon. Once we have some more information, it may not be till August, but we will have a webinar on it. So if you read about remote ID, just know that that's out there. Here's a link to all the resources that we talked about. So Advisory Circular 9157C or 57 Charlie, the phonetic alphabet. That's the place to go for recreational flyers. So if we've flown through all this and we're saying way too much words and you just don't know what to do, go to this Advisory Circular, AC we call them, Advisory Circular 9157 Charlie. That will spell out pretty much everything we've told you today. There's a link for fa.gov UAS recreational flyers. Same thing. 90% of what we got today can be found from that link. The Before You Fly app, FAA's website covers some stuff on it pretty good. Otherwise, you can just download it and play with it and figure it out. I mean, if you got a smartphone, you can find it right now. FAA Drone Zone, there's a link to that. The UAS facility maps is another good resource to look at where you can and cannot fly with your drone. It will show some TFRs. It will show you some military stuff. It will show you different airspaces, and you can layer a whole bunch of things on there. It's really, really useful if you know what to look for, but you can't just click on it and think it showed you everything. You gotta kind of know what to click on the map and look for, but it's a great resource. 1-800-WX-BRIEF is a weather briefing service for pilots, and they actually have drone stuff on there. So you don't have to set up an account. It's free regardless if you do. just is nice if you're flying in the same place every time. It saves some of that info. But you can get the weather and NOTAMs and TFRs, and they'll provide all that information. What's nice about that is it records what you, if you get a brief from them, it records it for like, I don't know, 60 days or something. So if you go there and say, show me TFRs in this area, and they say there's no TFRs, you've got a record of it. So that moving TFR we talked about, if it flies over you or whatever while you're flying and Secret Service shows up, say, I checked, there was no TFRs, and you actually have the proof to say, look, I'm good. And then of course, finally, all the CBOs we talked about. I'm not going to put their links here. We showed them earlier, but the CBOs are great resources for you. So now, Laura, we're going to open up to some questions, and if y'all have questions, send them to us. There's the email addresses for us at the FIS at the Bureau of Aeronautics and Laura. If you want to get directly with Rez or PJ, just let us know. We can send you their email address. But yeah, Laura, if there's questions for us, shoot away.